White Knight Method. Written and published by Cloudy Library. You can find ebook version in bio and feel free to subscribe for more content. Now, let's get into the book. Chapter 1. Introduction to the White Knight Method. Hey there. Let's talk about something you've probably encountered, even if you didn't know its name. The White Knight Method. You know that person who always seems to swoop in to save the day, especially when it comes to relationships or social situations. That's our White Knight. Now, you might be thinking, what's wrong with wanting to help people? And you're right to ask. There's nothing inherently bad about being helpful or supportive. But the White Knight we're discussing here isn't just your average Good Samaritan. Picture this. You're scrolling through social media, and you see a friend post about having a rough day. Suddenly, there's that one person in the comments, offering to drop everything to come to their rescue. They're not just offering a listening ear or some words of encouragement. No, they're ready to slay dragons, move mountains, or fight off an army of ninjas if that's what it takes to make things better. Sounds extreme, right? That's because it often is. The White Knight takes helping to a whole new level, and not always in a good way. But here's the thing. This behavior isn't just about being nice. It's a complex psychological phenomenon that can sometimes veer into manipulation territory. You see, the White Knight isn't just trying to help others. They're often trying to fulfill their own needs or achieve their own goals. Now, I'm not saying every person who offers help is secretly manipulating you. Far from it. But it's important to understand the difference between genuine assistance and the kind of helping that comes with strings attached. Throughout this book, we're going to dive deep into the world of White Knights. We'll explore why some people adopt this role, how they operate, and most importantly, how you can recognize when someone's help might not be as altruistic as it seems. You might be wondering why this matters to you. Well, whether you've been on the receiving end of a White Knight's attention, or you've found yourself slipping into this role, understanding this dynamic can be eye-opening. It can help you navigate relationships more effectively, set healthier boundaries, and even understand some of your own behaviors better. In the chapters that follow, we'll break down the psychology behind the White Knight syndrome, look at some real-world examples, and explore how cultural and social factors play into this behavior. By the time we're done, you'll have a whole new perspective on those seemingly selfless saviors in your life. And don't worry, we're not just going to leave you with a bunch of information and no way to use it. In our final chapter, we'll arm you with practical strategies to protect yourself from manipulation, whether it comes from a White Knight or any other source. So, are you ready to pull back the curtain on the White Knight phenomenon? Buckle up, because we're about to embark on a journey that might just change the way you view relationships and social interactions forever. Let's dive in. Chapter 2. Psychological Foundations and Motivations. To truly understand the White Knight phenomenon, we need to delve deep into the psychological underpinnings that drive this behavior. Why do some people feel compelled to rush to everyone's rescue, even when it's not necessary or wanted? The answer lies in a complex web of psychological factors, early life experiences, and deeply ingrained beliefs about self-worth and relationships. Childhood experiences and attachment styles. Many White Knights develop their helping tendencies in childhood, often in response to challenging family dynamics. Children who grow up in environments where their own needs are neglected, or where they feel they have to earn love and acceptance through constant giving and self-sacrifice, are more likely to develop White Knight tendencies in adulthood. These early experiences can lead to the development of an anxious attachment style. Individuals with anxious attachment often fear abandonment and may use excessive caregiving as a strategy to keep others close and dependent on them. They may believe, consciously or unconsciously, that if they're not constantly needed, they'll be left alone or rejected. For example, a child who had to care for a parent with addiction issues might grow up to be an adult who's always looking for people to save, recreating the dynamic they're familiar with from childhood. Low self-esteem and fragile self-worth. At the core of White Knight behavior often lies a deep-seated sense of low self-esteem and a fragile sense of self-worth. By positioning themselves as the indispensable hero in other people's lives, White knights create a sense of purpose and importance for themselves. It's a way of saying, "See, I matter. I'm needed." This need to prove their worth through helping can be all-consuming. White knights may find it difficult to feel good about themselves unless they're actively engaged in helping or rescuing others. This can lead to a constant search for people or situations that need their intervention, even when no real problem exists. The fragility of their self-worth often means that white knights are hypersensitive to perceived rejection or criticism. If their help is refused or not appreciated in the way they expect, it can trigger intense feelings of worthlessness or anxiety. Need for control. White knight behavior often stems from a deep-seated need for control. By always being the one to swoop in and save the day, white knights can maintain a position of power in their relationships. They become the go-to person, the one everyone relies on. This can be intoxicating for someone who otherwise feels powerless or insignificant. The need for control often originates from experiences of powerlessness or unpredictability in childhood. By taking charge and solving others' problems, white knights create a sense of order and predictability in their world. They may believe that if they can control the situations around them by fixing everyone's problems, they can prevent bad things from happening to themselves or their loved ones. However, this need for control can become oppressive in relationships. White knights may struggle to let others make their own decisions or solve their own problems, leading to stifled growth and resentment in those around them. External validation and approval seeking. Another crucial aspect of the white knight psychology is the intense need for external validation. These individuals often have difficulty finding internal sources of self-worth and satisfaction. Instead, they rely heavily on the approval and gratitude of others to feel good about themselves. Each rescue mission becomes an opportunity to garner praise and appreciation, feeding their emotional hunger. This dependency on external validation can make white knights particularly vulnerable to manipulation by those who recognize and exploit this need. The constant seeking of approval can also lead to people-pleasing behaviors. White knights may find it difficult to say no or to prioritize their own needs, always putting others first in the hope of receiving positive feedback and maintaining their self-image as the good or helpful one. Empathy and emotional sensitivity. Many white knights possess a high degree of empathy and emotional sensitivity. They're often acutely attuned to the emotional states of those around them and can easily pick up on others' distress or needs. While empathy is generally a positive trait, in white knights it can become overwhelming and lead to over-involvement in others' emotional lives. This heightened empathy, combined with their need to help, can result in white knights taking on the emotional burdens of everyone around them. They may feel responsible for managing not only their own emotions but also those of their friends, family, or even acquaintances. This can lead to emotional exhaustion and burnout. Savior complex and grandiosity. The white knight mentality often involves elements of a savior complex. This is characterized by an inflated sense of one's own importance and abilities, particularly when it comes to helping or rescuing others. White knights may see themselves as uniquely capable of solving others' problems, leading to a sense of grandiosity. This savior complex can be reinforced by cultural narratives that glorify self-sacrifice and heroism. White knights may internalize these stories, casting themselves as the hero in their own life narrative. This can lead to a distorted view of reality where they overestimate their ability to help and underestimate others' capacity to solve their own problems. Fear of intimacy and vulnerability. Paradoxically, while white knights often crave close relationships, many have a deep-seated fear of true intimacy and vulnerability. By focusing on others' needs and problems, they can avoid dealing with their own emotional issues or vulnerabilities. Helping others becomes a way to connect without having to reveal their true selves or their own needs. It allows them to maintain a degree of emotional distance while still feeling connected to others. This fear of vulnerability can stem from past experiences of rejection or emotional hurt. Codependency and enabling behaviors. White knight behavior is often closely linked to codependency. In codependent relationships, one person's help supports or enables another person's underachievement, irresponsibility, or harmful behavior. The white knight becomes emotionally dependent on being needed, while simultaneously enabling the dependency of others. This creates a cycle that can be hard to break. The white knight's self-worth becomes tied to their role as the helper or rescuer, while the person being helped may become increasingly reliant on the white knight's support. Both parties may resist changes to this dynamic, even when it's clearly unhealthy, because it serves certain emotional needs for both of them. Guilt and moral superiority. Many white knights operate under a strong sense of guilt or moral obligation. They may feel that it's their duty to help others, and that failing to do so makes them a bad person. This guilt can drive them to take on responsibilities that aren't theirs and to overextend themselves in their helping efforts. Alongside this guilt often comes a sense of moral superiority. By constantly sacrificing for others, white knights may come to see themselves as morally superior to those around them. This can lead to a judgmental attitude towards those who don't engage in the same level of helping behavior, further reinforcing the white knight's self-image as the good one. Unresolved trauma and rescuer-victim dynamics. In some cases, white knight behavior can be traced back to unresolved trauma. Individuals who have experienced traumatic events, particularly in childhood, may unconsciously seek out opportunities to rescue others as a way of processing their own trauma. This can lead to a rescuer-victim dynamic in relationships, where the white knight is constantly looking for victims to save. This dynamic can be particularly problematic if the white knight was themselves a victim of abuse or neglect, as they may be recreating familiar patterns from their past. Fear of abandonment and relationship insecurity. A deep-seated fear of abandonment often underlies white knight behavior. By making themselves indispensable through their helping behaviors, white knights attempt to secure their place in others' lives. They may believe, consciously or unconsciously, that if they stop being helpful, people will have no reason to keep them around. This fear can lead to clingy or possessive behaviors in relationships. White knights may become anxious or upset when those they help show signs of independence or seek support from others. They may even unconsciously sabotage others' efforts at self-sufficiency to maintain their role as the needed helper. Narcissistic tendencies. While it might seem contradictory, some white knight behaviors can stem from narcissistic personality traits. The constant need to be seen as the hero, the grandiose belief in one's ability to solve others' problems, and the expectation of gratitude and admiration all align with narcissistic patterns. In these cases, the helping behavior is less about genuine care for others and more about maintaining a particular self-image and gaining narcissistic supply through others' dependence and admiration. Avoidance of personal growth and self-reflection. By constantly focusing on others' problems and needs, white knights can effectively avoid dealing with their own issues. Helping others becomes a form of distraction or avoidance, allowing them to sidestep the uncomfortable work of self-reflection and personal growth. This avoidance can stunt their emotional development and prevent them from addressing their own underlying psychological issues. It can also lead to a lack of self-awareness, making it difficult for white knights to recognize the problematic aspects of their behavior. The role of cultural and social conditioning. It's important to note that white knight tendencies aren't solely the result of individual psychological factors. They're also shaped by cultural and social conditioning. Many societies valorize self-sacrifice and helping behaviors, particularly along gendered lines. Men may be conditioned to see themselves as protectors and providers, while women may be socialized to be nurturers and caretakers. These cultural messages can amplify and reinforce white knight tendencies in individuals who are already predisposed to these behaviors due to their personal psychological makeup. The biochemical reward system. From a neurobiological perspective, helping behaviors can trigger the release of feel-good chemicals in the brain, such as dopamine and oxytocin. This creates a biochemical reward system that can reinforce white knight behaviors. The helper's high that comes from acts of altruism can become addictive, driving individuals to seek out more opportunities to help in order to recreate that positive feeling. Understanding these psychological foundations is crucial because it helps us see white knight behavior for what it truly is: a complex coping mechanism rooted in deep-seated emotional needs and past experiences. It's not simply a character trait or a sign of pure altruism, but a manifestation of underlying psychological dynamics. By recognizing these motivations, we can approach white knight behavior with more empathy and understanding. At the same time, this understanding allows us to see why these behaviors can be problematic and even manipulative, despite often coming from a place of genuine desire to help. For those who recognize white knight tendencies in themselves, understanding these psychological underpinnings is the first step towards change. It provides a roadmap for addressing the root causes of the behavior, rather than just trying to modify surface-level actions. For those dealing with white knights in their lives, this understanding can provide valuable insights into the motivations behind the behavior. It can help in setting boundaries and navigating relationships with white knights in a way that's healthy for all involved. In the next chapter, we'll explore how these psychological motivations manifest in specific behaviors and tactics. By recognizing these patterns, you'll be better equipped to identify white knight behavior in your own life and relationships, and to respond in ways that promote healthier, more balanced interactions. Chapter 3: Common Tactics and Behaviors. Now that we've explored the psychological underpinnings of white knight behavior, let's dive into how these motivations manifest in real-world actions and tactics. Understanding these patterns is crucial for identifying white knight behavior in your relationships and interactions. The unsolicited savior. One of the most telltale signs of a white knight is their tendency to offer help or solutions without being asked. They're always on the lookout for problems to solve, even when there isn't really a problem at all. Imagine you're venting to a friend about a minor disagreement with your partner. Before you can even finish explaining, the white knight jumps in with, "I'll talk to them for you." Or, "You should break up with them immediately." They've appointed themselves as your personal problem solver, regardless of whether you want or need their intervention. This behavior stems from the white knight's need to feel important and valued. By positioning themselves as the solution to every problem, they reinforce their self-image as the indispensable hero. However, this can often lead to overstepping boundaries and undermining others' autonomy. The emotional caretaker. White knights often take on the role of emotional caretaker in their relationships. They're hyper-attuned to others' emotional states and rush to provide comfort or support at the slightest sign of distress. While this might seem caring on the surface, it can become suffocating and disempowering for the recipient. The white knight may inadvertently send the message that the other person is incapable of handling their own emotions or solving their own problems. This behavior is particularly common in romantic relationships. The white knight might constantly check in on their partner's emotional state, offer unsolicited advice, or take responsibility for managing their partner's moods. Over time, this can create an unhealthy dynamic where one person becomes overly dependent on the other for emotional regulation. The martyr. White knights often engage in excessive self-sacrifice, going to great lengths to help others even at significant personal cost. They might give up their own time, resources, or opportunities to assist someone else, often in ways that are disproportionate to the actual need. For example, a white knight might stay up all night helping a friend with a project, even if it means they'll be exhausted for their own important presentation the next day. Or they might lend money they can't afford to spare, just to be seen as the generous savior. This martyrdom serves multiple purposes for the white knight. It reinforces their self-image as a selfless hero, garners admiration and gratitude from others, and can be used as a form of emotional leverage in relationships. After all I've done for you. The fixer. White knights have an intense need to fix everything and everyone around them. They're quick to offer solutions, even for problems that don't necessarily need solving, or for people who haven't asked for help. This fixing behavior can extend beyond practical problems to people's emotions, personalities, or life circumstances. A white knight might take it upon themselves to fix a friend's dating life, career path, or family relationships, often without considering whether their help is wanted or appropriate. The compulsion to fix others often stems from the white knight's own insecurities and need for control. By focusing on others' problems, They can avoid dealing with their own issues and maintain a sense of superiority. The guilt tripper. When their help isn't accepted or appreciated in the way they expect, white knights often resort to guilt tripping. They might make passive-aggressive comments about how much they've sacrificed or how ungrateful others are. This tactic is a way for the white knight to maintain their position of moral superiority while also manipulating others into accepting their help or showing gratitude. It's a subtle form of emotional blackmail that can be particularly damaging in close relationships. The boundary crosser. White knights often struggle with respecting others' boundaries. In their eagerness to help or fix, they may overstep personal, emotional, or even physical boundaries. This might manifest as showing up uninvited to help with a situation, prying into personal matters under the guise of concern, or making decisions on behalf of others without their consent. The white knight justifies these boundary violations by telling themselves and others that they're acting out of care and concern. The advice giver. White knights love to dispense advice, often unsolicited and in abundance. They position themselves as experts on a wide range of topics and are quick to tell others what they should do in any given situation. This behavior stems from the white knight's need to feel knowledgeable and in control. By constantly offering advice, they reinforce their perceived superiority and indispensability. However, this can be frustrating for others who may simply want to be heard rather than instructed. The crisis creator. In some cases, white knights may unconsciously create or exaggerate crises to give themselves opportunities to play the hero. They might blow small issues out of proportion or even subtly sabotage situations so that their help becomes necessary. For example, a white knight might discourage a friend from applying for a job, citing various potential problems, only to then offer to help polish their resume and coach them through the interview process. This creates a scenario where the white knight gets to be the savior, even though they partly created the need for their help in the first place. The emotional vampire. While white knights present themselves as givers, they often have an insatiable need for emotional energy from others. They may constantly seek reassurance, gratitude, or admiration for their helpful acts. This can be draining for those around them, as the white knight's need for emotional feedback is often disproportionate to the help they've provided. It can create a dynamic where others feel constantly indebted or obligated to provide emotional support to the white knight. The dependency enabler. White knights often enable dependency in others, sometimes unconsciously. By always being available to help and solve problems, they can undermine others' ability or motivation to handle challenges independently. This creates a cycle of dependency that serves the white knight's need to feel needed and important. However, it can be incredibly damaging to the personal growth and autonomy of those they claim to be helping. The rescuer in shining armor. In romantic contexts, white knights often cast themselves in the role of the rescuer, particularly targeting partners who appear vulnerable or in need of saving. They might be drawn to people with troubled pasts, addiction issues, or other significant life challenges. The white knight enters these relationships with grand visions of how they'll transform their partner's life. They might make sweeping promises about how they'll protect their partner from all harm or solve all their problems. This behavior is often rooted in romantic fantasies and a desire to be seen as the ultimate hero. However, these relationships often become imbalanced and codependent. The white knight's partner may feel pressured to maintain a position of vulnerability to keep the white knight engaged, while the white knight may struggle if their partner becomes more independent or if problems arise that they can't solve. The compulsive caregiver. White knights often extend their helping behavior to physical caregiving, sometimes to an excessive degree. They might insist on taking care of minor ailments, preparing meals, or handling household tasks for others, even when such help isn't necessary or wanted. While this can seem caring, it can also be a way for the white knight to assert control and create dependency. It can leave the recipients feeling infantilized or incompetent, damaging their self-esteem and autonomy over time. The information gatekeeper. Some white knights position themselves as indispensable by becoming the go-to source for information or resources. They might hoard knowledge or connections, only doling them out when they can be the hero. For instance, a white knight in a workplace might withhold important information about a project, only to swoop in at the last minute with the crucial details, thus cementing their role as the savior. This behavior serves their need to feel important and needed, but it can be detrimental to team dynamics and efficiency. The perfectionist helper. White knights often set unrealistically high standards for their helping behavior. They may go to extreme lengths to ensure that their assistance is perfect, often overcomplicating simple tasks or spending far more time and energy than necessary. This perfectionism is usually driven by a fear of failure or criticism. The white knight believes that if their help isn't absolutely perfect, and by extension, they will be deemed worthless. This can lead to burnout for the white knight and frustration for those they're trying to help. The emotional blackmailer. In more extreme cases, white knights might resort to emotional blackmail to maintain their position as the indispensable helper. They might threaten to withdraw their support if their help isn't accepted or appreciated in the way they expect. This could manifest as statements like, "If you really cared about me, you'd let me help you," or "Fine, I guess you don't need me anymore." This tactic is a way for the white knight to manipulate others into accepting their help and maintaining the dynamic they desire. The humble bragger. White knights often engage in a form of humble bragging about their helpful acts. They might downplay their actions while simultaneously drawing attention to them, fishing for praise or recognition. For example, they might say something like, "Oh, it was nothing. I just stayed up all night finishing the project for the team. I'm a bit tired, but it's no big deal." This behavior serves their need for external validation while maintaining the appearance of humility. The overprotector. White knights often take protection to an extreme level, trying to shield others from any form of discomfort or challenge. They might try to prevent loved ones from taking risks or facing difficult situations, even when those experiences could lead to personal growth. This overprotection, while often well-intentioned, can stunt the personal development of those around the white knight. It sends the message that the white knight doesn't believe others are capable of handling challenges on their own. The indirect communicator. Many white knights struggle with direct communication, especially when it comes to their own needs. Instead of clearly expressing what they want or need, they might drop hints or use their helping behavior as a roundabout way of getting their needs met. For instance, a white knight might do a favor for someone, secretly hoping that the person will reciprocate in a specific way, but never actually expressing this desire. When their unspoken expectations aren't met, they feel resentful and unappreciated. The comparison maker. White knights often bolster their self-image by comparing their helpful behavior to that of others. They might make comments like, "Well, at least I'm always here for you, unlike some people," or "I can't believe no one else offered to help you with this." This tactic serves to elevate the white knight's status as the ultimate helper while potentially driving wedges in other relationships. It's a subtle way of ensuring that they remain the primary source of support in someone's life. The savior complex embodied. Perhaps the most overarching behavior of white knights is their tendency to view every interaction through the lens of a savior complex. They're constantly on the lookout for opportunities to be the hero, often at the expense of balanced, healthy relationships. This mindset can lead them to misinterpret situations, seeing problems where there are none, or viewing others as perpetually in need of rescue. It can create a skewed worldview where the white knight is always the strong one, the capable one, the necessary one. A perspective that ultimately serves their own emotional needs rather than truly helping others. Understanding these tactics and behaviors is crucial for identifying white knight tendencies in others and in ourselves. It's important to remember that these behaviors often come from a place of deep-seated insecurity and unmet emotional needs, rather than malicious intent. However, regardless of the motivation, these tactics can be manipulative and damaging to relationships. In the next chapter, we'll explore some real-world examples of white knight behavior in action, helping you to see how these tactics play out in everyday situations. By becoming more aware of these patterns, you'll be better equipped to navigate relationships with white knights and to catch yourself if you start slipping into these behaviors. Remember, the goal isn't to vilify white knights, but to understand this complex behavior pattern. With awareness comes the power to create healthier, more balanced relationships, whether you're dealing with a white knight in your life or working to change your own white knight tendencies. Chapter 4. Real-world examples and case studies. To truly understand the impact of white knight behavior, it's essential to see how it plays out in real-life situations. In this chapter, we'll explore several case studies that illustrate the various tactics and behaviors we've discussed. These examples will help you recognize white knight patterns in your own life and relationships. Case Study 1. The Workplace White Knight. Meet Alex, a mid-level manager at a tech company. Alex prides himself on being the go-to person for solving problems and helping his team members. While this might seem admirable on the surface, let's look closer at how his white knight tendencies affect the workplace dynamics. Scenario: a new project is assigned to the team. Before anyone else can react, Alex jumps in, saying, "Don't worry, I'll handle the bulk of it. I know you're all busy, and I don't mind putting in extra hours." Analysis: Alex's behavior might seem helpful, but it actually undermines his team members' abilities and growth opportunities. By constantly taking on extra work, he's preventing others from developing new skills, creating an expectation that he'll always be there to save the day, potentially burning himself out, subtly implying that his teammates aren't capable or dedicated enough. Over time, Alex's team becomes less proactive and more dependent on him. When he eventually takes a vacation, the team struggles to function without him. This dependency feeds Alex's need to feel indispensable, creating a cycle that's ultimately unhealthy for everyone involved. Case Study 2. The Romantic White Knight. Sarah met Tom when she was going through a difficult divorce. Tom immediately cast himself in the role of her protector and savior. Scenario: Sarah mentions she's struggling to pay her bills due to the ongoing legal fees from her divorce. Tom immediately offers, "I'll pay your bills for you. You shouldn't have to worry about money on top of everything else." Analysis: while Tom's offer might seem generous, it sets up a problematic dynamic. It creates a financial dependency early in the relationship. It positions Tom as the savior and Sarah as the damsel in distress. It potentially rushes the intimacy of the relationship. It may make Sarah feel obligated to stay in the relationship out of gratitude. As the relationship progresses, Tom continues to rescue Sarah in various ways, from handling all her car maintenance to intervening in her disputes with her ex-husband. Sarah begins to feel smothered and incapable, while Tom grows resentful that his sacrifices aren't met with constant gratitude. Case Study 3. The Friendly White Knight. Emma and Jade have been best friends since college. Emma has always been the strong one in the friendship, constantly coming to Jade's aid. Scenario: Jade is going through a rough patch in her career and is considering a major change. Before Jade can fully explore her options, Emma jumps in with solutions. "I've already talked to my boss about a position for you at my company. You'd be perfect for it." Analysis: Emma's actions, while seemingly helpful, are problematic for several reasons. She's making decisions for Jade without fully consulting her. She's not allowing Jade the space to figure things out on her own. She's potentially rushing Jade into a decision she's not ready to make. She's creating a situation where Jade might feel obligated to take the job out of gratitude. This pattern repeats in various aspects of their friendship, with Emma always ready to swoop in and fix Jade's problems. Over time, Jade starts to doubt her own decision-making abilities and becomes overly reliant on Emma's advice and help. Case Study 4. The Parental White Knight. Michael is a single father to 16-year-old Sophia. He's dedicated his life to ensuring Sophia has everything she needs, often at the expense of his own needs and Sophia's independence. Scenario: Sophia has a big school project due. Michael, worried about her grades, stays up all night to complete the project himself, telling Sophia, "Don't worry, sweetie. I've taken care of it. You just focus on getting enough sleep." Analysis: Michael's actions, while coming from a place of love, are detrimental to Sophia's development. He's preventing Sophia from learning important skills like time management and responsibility. He's sending the message that he doesn't believe Sophia is capable of handling the project herself. He's potentially setting Sophia up for future academic dishonesty. He's sacrificing his own well-being, which could lead to resentment later. This pattern of overprotection and excessive help continues, leaving Sophia ill-prepared for the challenges of adult life when she eventually leaves home. Case Study 5. The Community White Knight. Linda is known in her community as the person who's always ready to help. She volunteers for every committee, organizes fundraisers, and is the first to offer assistance when anyone is in need. Scenario: a new family moves into the neighborhood. Before they can even finish unpacking, Linda shows up with a week's worth of home-cooked meals, offers to babysit their kids, and insists on organizing a welcome party. Analysis: while Linda's actions might seem kind, they can be overwhelming and even intrusive. She's not giving the new family space to settle in and establish their own routines. She's potentially making them feel obligated to reciprocate or participate in community events before they're ready. She's setting an expectation that she'll always be there to help, which may be unsustainable. She might be neglecting her own needs or family in her rush to help others. Over time, Linda becomes burned out trying to maintain her role as the community's white knight, while others in the neighborhood become overly reliant on her and less likely to step up themselves. Case Study 6. The Social Media White Knight. Jason is very active on social media, always ready to jump into online discussions and debates to defend others. Scenario: Jason sees a heated discussion on a friend's social media post about a controversial topic. Without being asked, he jumps in, aggressively arguing with anyone who disagrees with his friend's stance. Analysis: Jason's behavior, while possibly well-intentioned, is problematic. He's potentially escalating conflicts unnecessarily. He's speaking for others who may not want or need his defense. He's seeking validation and attention through online confrontations. He might be oversimplifying complex issues in his rush to be the hero. Jason's online white knight behavior often leads to increased tension in discussions and can even damage his real-life relationships if he takes online arguments too far. These case studies illustrate how white knight behavior can manifest in various aspects of life, from work and romantic relationships to friendships, family dynamics, community involvement, and even online interactions. In each case, the white knight's actions, while often well-intentioned, lead to unhealthy dynamics and potential long-term problems. By examining these real-world examples, we can see how the tactics and behaviors discussed in previous chapters play out in everyday situations. This understanding is crucial for identifying white knight patterns in our own lives and relationships. In the next chapter, we'll explore the cultural and social influences that contribute to white knight behavior, helping us understand why this phenomenon is so prevalent in our society. Chapter 5. Cultural and Social Influences. To fully understand the white knight phenomenon, we need to examine the broader cultural and social contexts that foster and reinforce this behavior. White knight tendencies don't develop in a vacuum. They're shaped by the values, narratives, and expectations of our society. In this chapter, we'll explore some of the key cultural and social influences that contribute to white knight behavior. The hero narrative. Our culture is saturated with stories of heroes saving the day. From ancient myths to modern superhero movies, we're constantly exposed to narratives that glorify the idea of a single individual swooping in to rescue others from peril. This pervasive theme can shape our understanding of what it means to be valuable or worthy. For potential white knights, these stories can serve as a template for how to gain admiration and respect. They may internalize the idea that to be truly valuable, one must be constantly ready to save others, even when no real danger exists. Moreover, these narratives often oversimplify complex situations into clear-cut scenarios of good versus evil, hero versus villain. This can lead white knights to view the world in black and white terms, always looking for opportunities to cast themselves as the hero in their own story. Gender roles and expectations. Traditional gender roles play a significant part in shaping white knight behavior, particularly in men. The idea that men should be protectors and providers is deeply ingrained in many cultures. This expectation can push men towards white knight behaviors as a way of fulfilling what they see as their societal role. For women, the influence of gender roles on white knight behavior can be more complex. On one hand, women are often socialized to be nurturers and caretakers, which can lead to white knight tendencies. On the other hand, they may face social pushback if they're seen as too assertive or controlling in their helping behaviors. It's important to note that these gender influences aren't universal or absolute. White knight behavior can manifest in people of all genders, influenced by individual experiences and cultural contexts. The self-sacrifice ideal. Many cultures and religions place a high value on self-sacrifice, often portraying it as the ultimate form of virtue. This ideal can fuel white knight behaviors, as individuals strive to prove their moral worth through constant self-denial and excessive helping. The problem arises when this ideal is taken to an extreme, leading people to neglect their own needs and boundaries in their quest to be good or worthy. This can create a cycle where white knights burn themselves out trying to live up to an impossible standard of selflessness. The myth of independence. Paradoxically, while our culture often glorifies self-sacrifice, it also places a high value on independence and self-reliance. This can create a complex dynamic where people feel pressured to appear strong and capable at all times, while simultaneously feeling compelled to help others demonstrate their worth. For white knights, this contradiction can manifest as a need to be seen as the strong, capable savior who doesn't need help themselves. This can make it difficult for them to admit their own vulnerabilities or accept help from others, further reinforcing their role as the perpetual helper. Social media and the performance of virtue. In the age of social media, acts of kindness and helpfulness can easily become performances for an online audience. The instant gratification of likes, shares, and positive comments can reinforce white knight behaviors, as people seek validation through public displays of their helping actions. This performative aspect of modern culture can push white knights to escalate their behaviors, constantly seeking more dramatic or visible ways to demonstrate their helpfulness and virtue. The prosperity gospel and good karma. Various cultural and spiritual beliefs promote the idea that good deeds will be rewarded with personal success or happiness. Whether it's the prosperity gospel in some religious contexts or a general belief in good karma, these ideas can fuel white knight behaviors. White knights may engage in helping behaviors not just for the immediate gratification, but also in the hope that their actions will lead to future rewards or protection from misfortune. This can lead to a transactional view of relationships and helping behaviors. The cult of busyness. In many modern societies, busyness is often equated with importance and worth. Being constantly occupied, especially with tasks that help others, can be seen as a badge of honor. This cultural value can drive white knights to take on more and more responsibilities, filling their time with helping behaviors as a way to prove their value and importance. The individualization of social problems. Our culture often frames societal issues as individual problems with individual solutions. This perspective can encourage white knight behaviors by suggesting that personal intervention is the primary way to address other struggles. While individual help can be valuable, this viewpoint can lead white knights to overlook systemic issues and focus solely on rescuing individuals, potentially enabling larger problems to persist. The romanticization of codependency. Popular culture, especially in romantic narratives, often romanticizes codependent relationships. The idea of two people completing each other or one partner saving the other is frequently portrayed as the epitome of love. This cultural narrative can normalize and even glorify white knight behaviors in romantic relationships, encouraging people to seek out or create dynamics where one partner is the constant savior and the other the perpetual damsel in distress. The helper's high. Scientific research has shown that helping others can produce a physiological response often referred to as the helper's high. This feel-good sensation, caused by the release of endorphins, can be addictive. Our culture's awareness and promotion of this phenomenon can inadvertently encourage white knight behaviors as people chase this natural high. Professional cultures of overwork. In many professional fields, particularly those centered around caring or service, like healthcare, education, or social work, there's often a culture that glorifies overwork and self-sacrifice. This professional ethos can spill over into personal life, encouraging white knight behaviors across all areas of an individual's life. The decline of community structures. As traditional community structures have weakened in many societies, there's been a corresponding rise in individualism. This shift can create a vacuum that white knights attempt to fill, taking on roles that might have previously been shared among community members. Understanding these cultural and social influences is crucial in addressing white knight behaviors. It allows us to see how deeply ingrained these tendencies can be and why they're so prevalent in our society. By recognizing these broader influences, we can begin to challenge the narratives and expectations that fuel white knight behaviors, both in ourselves and in our communities. In the next and final chapter, we'll explore strategies for protecting yourself from white knight manipulation and for breaking free from white knight patterns in your own behavior. Armed with this understanding of the cultural context, we'll be better equipped to create healthier, more balanced ways of relating to others and ourselves. Chapter 6. Recognizing and Protecting Yourself from Manipulation. Throughout this book, we've explored the complex psychology behind white knight behavior and its various manifestations. Now, it's time to focus on practical strategies to protect yourself from white knight manipulation and to address these tendencies if you recognize them in yourself. Protecting yourself from white knight manipulation. Recognize the signs. The first step in protecting yourself is being able to identify white knight behavior. Look out for unsolicited help or advice, excessive self-sacrifice, guilt-tripping or emotional manipulation, boundary violations, creation of dependency. Set and maintain clear boundaries. Clearly communicate your limits and expectations. Be firm in enforcing your boundaries. Remember that saying no is not only okay, but sometimes necessary for healthy relationships. Practice self-reliance. Develop your problem-solving skills. Build a diverse support network rather than relying on one person. Take responsibility for your own emotional well-being. Be wary of excessive generosity. If something seems too good to be true, it often is. Be cautious of help that comes with strings attached. Trust your instincts if you feel uncomfortable with someone's level of involvement in your life. Encourage balanced relationships. Strive for mutuality in your relationships. Be willing to both give and receive help. Avoid relationships where you're constantly cast as either the savior or the one being saved. Practice assertive communication. Express your needs and feelings directly. Learn to say no without feeling guilty. Acknowledge offered help graciously, but don't feel obligated to accept it. Seek professional help if needed. If you find yourself consistently attracting or being affected by white knight behavior, consider talking to a therapist. Professional help can provide valuable insights and strategies for changing unhealthy relationship patterns, breaking free from your own white knight patterns. If you recognize white knight tendencies in yourself, here are some strategies to help break free from these patterns. Examine your motivations. Reflect on why you feel compelled to always help or save others. Consider what needs of your own you might be trying to meet through these behaviors. Work on self-esteem. Develop a sense of self-worth that isn't dependent on others' approval or need for you. Practice self-compassion and self-care. Learn to tolerate discomfort. Practice sitting with the discomfort of not immediately jumping in to help. Recognize that it's okay for others to struggle or make mistakes. Develop healthy helping behaviors. Learn to ask before offering help. Offer support in ways that empower others rather than creating dependency. Recognize the difference between helping and enabling. Practice mindfulness. Be present in the moment and aware of your thoughts and impulses. This can help you make more conscious choices about when and how to offer help. Seek balance in your life. Cultivate interests and relationships that aren't centered around being the helper. Make time for your own needs and personal growth. Challenge your beliefs. Question the belief that your worth is tied to how much you help others. Challenge the idea that you're responsible for solving everyone else's problems. Learn to receive. Practice accepting help and support from others. Recognize that allowing others to help you can strengthen relationships. Develop emotional intelligence. Work on recognizing and managing your own emotions. Improve your ability to empathize with others without taking on their problems as your own. Seek professional help. Consider therapy or counseling to work through the root causes of your white knight tendencies. A professional can provide personalized strategies for changing these patterns. Remember, change takes time and patience. Be kind to yourself as you work on developing healthier patterns of relating to others. It's okay to help and care for people. The goal is to do so in a way that's balanced, respectful of boundaries, and healthy for both you and the people in your life. Conclusion. White knight behavior, while often rooted in genuine desire to help, can lead to manipulative and unhealthy relationship dynamics. By understanding the psychology behind this behavior, recognizing its manifestations, and implementing strategies to protect ourselves and change our own patterns, we can foster healthier, more balanced relationships. Remember, true strength isn't about always being the savior or having all the answers. It's about fostering mutual respect, maintaining healthy boundaries, and supporting others in ways that empower rather than enable. As we move forward, let's strive for relationships characterized by quality, respect, and genuine, non-manipulative care for one another.